Micron just out with its second quarter earnings moments ago, reporting a big beat on its top and bottom line, and interestingly, its sales forecast topping estimates. The stock up 13% right now in the news. Joining us now is Rolf, analyst at New Street Research. He is based in Singapore, and you've been going through the numbers here, Rolf. So what stands out to you? That forecast in particular, pretty big beat.
Yeah, it is a big beat. Thank you for having me. So yeah, what we see here is a 9% beat on revenue, and that is driven by an increased demand for DRAM chips, but importantly also price increases in both NAND and DRAM. Now the guide, 6.4 billion to 6.8 billion, which is a 10% beat. And importantly, COGS, the cost of goods sold, is also guided up to increase 4% Q on Q. Now that signals that demand for chips is also set to further increase in the coming quarter.
And Rolf, Micron, it serves so many important end markets, including PCs and smartphones. What are you expecting in those verticals in 2024?
So PCs and smartphones, the recovery has been a bit lackluster so far. So while I do expect those segments to recover, in particular in PCs, I think the recovery will be second half weighted. And in smartphones, there continues to be a bit of a risk of a pullback in the higher end of the market. But as it stands today, those markets should recover in 2024. But for Micron and the broader tech space at the moment, it is all about the data center. And for the data center, while high bandwidth memory, which is a massive topic in memory, doesn't do much yet for Micron today, it is set to inflect their growth in the remainder of 2024 and into 2025.
Well, and does this sales forecast, this is not like an NVIDIA-sized forecast like we got last year with the big shock forecast, but with the demand for high bandwidth memory, do you think that there is room for Micron to even beat the forecast that it's giving today? If you're calling that sort of an inflection, right, will we see a big upgrade even?
It's difficult to say at this point. It is heavily dependent on price development. But what we see today is that the industry and Micron are being very disciplined when it comes to adding capacity. In memory, it is all about the equation between demand and supply. Micron is being very disciplined there. And importantly, the same goes for Hynix and Samsung, the other two major players in memory. So as long as this dynamic persists of the industry being very disciplined when it comes to adding supply and demand steadily recovering, the setup is very strong for the remainder of 2024.
And Rolf, I'm also curious, what do customer inventories kind of look like right now? What are the trends we're seeing there?
They have largely normalized, fortunately for Micron. In data center, that is the last segment in which inventories have normalized. It's now very close to normal levels in that segment as well. So on that front, everything looks okay. The industry still needs to work down the inventories that they have built up themselves. So Micron, Hynix, and Samsung do still have excess inventory on their balance sheet, and that needs to be worked down over the remainder of this year. What we'll see is that gross margin, as a result of those inventories being worked down and prices recovering, it should continue to trend up as of these levels. And the print that they just gave is a strong testimony to that. And the same goes for the guide. So 25 to 28% gross margin versus market expectation of 20% is a good indication that we are on track on that inventory recovery.
And Rolf, finally, to take a step back from today's numbers, we just got the news today that Intel was indeed the recipient of a grant from the U.S. Commerce Department to build out production of chips in the United States. It's expected that Micron is going to be the recipient of another grant. How important is that for the company, and does that play into the investment case for the company also?
It is important to some degree. We see a large pool, if you will, of manufacturers, and this is across memory, across logic, to get those funds to build out fab capacity in the U.S. Now, for Micron, they are, of course, one of the few domestic suppliers of memory in the U.S. It is important for them to get that subsidy to remain competitive with their larger peers in Korea.
Rolf, thanks so much for joining the show today. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.